Good morning. Joining on my way to the gym again. So I am really, God, where do I start? Well, right now is a pretty great time to be alive. If I'm honest, I think that right now is a fantastic time to be alive. I think that right now, if you are in your 20s, you're about to live through one of the most interesting periods of human history ever. And I think that it's going to turn out okay as well. I really do. This is the thing. I've been getting very into prepping stuff recently. I found a couple of YouTube channels who I'll shout out now because they're similar to the kind of content that I quite like to watch, and that probably you guys quite like to watch. You have to bear with me on this phone thing. Similar content to what I'm trying to recreate here, and what you guys probably might like to watch already, like Why Learn or BizPath or that sort of thing. There's Jimmy Talks. He's an American, he's an America First guy, and he's a really straight talker, which I really like. So I will definitely say that his stuff is very interesting. Now, I've come across his stuff. I've always been into Bitcoin. I've at various times had like physical gold and silver as well. And watching his stuff got me thinking about a book that I read earlier on this year called The Mandibles, which is a fiction book. It's by the woman who wrote We Need to Talk About Kevin, Lionel Shriver. It's by her. But it is set in about 20 years from now, in a sort of future where the US defaults on its debt. Or I can't remember whether the US defaults on its debt or whether other countries just get sick of it not paying it back. Anyways, but it's basically the US goes through hyperinflation, and it's a very good book, because I think that what a lot of people don't consider in general with their lives is second order effects. If you live in the UK and you're watching this, our Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, does not know what a second order effect is. She's a first order thinking person, basically, and I think that it requires a certain level of definitely intelligence and maybe even knowledge to know that, for example, if you start taxing people if you see 20 people doing a certain thing and they're making money from it, if you start taxing them and taking away half of it, you don't get half of what 20 people were doing, because now probably 10 of them are going to say, well, that's not worth it for me anymore, I'm not going to bother. So you're actually going to only be able to tax half of it from like 5 of them or something like that, or a few of them reduce what they're doing so they don't come into your tax threshold. So she has first order thinking in the fact that she thinks that, if I tax that, then we'll get more from it. She does not have second order thinking in the way that she can then think, well, what's the effect of that, right? What happens after that? So second order thinking and second order effects. So that it's a good book for second order effects of things like debt defaults and hyperinflation. And that was coupled, reading that book and getting back into, I think the best way I can put it is the man that I always wanted to be. That is kind of, funnily enough, that's what I've gotten back into thinking about a lot recently. For all of my life, I've imagined myself as a father, as a man who I've always wanted to have children that are good readers and really good at climbing trees, and certainly not afraid to climb a tree as well. That's how I've always imagined myself, and you guys probably imagine yourselves in a certain way. But for maybe a year, maybe for 2 years actually, I lost sight of that, and it hasn't produced anything good. And I would say as well that losing sight of that has resulted in 2 years of my life that I feel like certainly outwasted. It's not as if everything along that way was not worthwhile. There were loads of things in there that were really worthwhile. Some amazing people that I met. I got married, and you know, I think I probably even proposed in that time as well. But I think there's been about 2 years of my life, and you might find this if you're a bit like me and you've basically had a quarter life crisis, which is what I think this is. Then you know, when you refocus on what you really want, and that's you kind of realise, why did I ever go away from this? So to give you a little bit of backstory to myself and my own quarter life crisis, and I think this is maybe something that a lot of people are going to go through in their 20s now. I know that, you know, videos about the loneliness epidemic, videos about building yourself up to be a stronger man, they are extremely popular at the moment, and I'd say for good reason. We are a generation that has potentially not grown up with father figures that have passed on an awful lot of information. We've grown up as well, and I don't know if I can blame them. Right now, I live an incredibly busy life. I maybe have like an hour in the evening most days, which is a little like, God, where are kids going to fit into this within the next couple of years? Where the hell am I going to fit kids into this? But there you go. That is how I think at the moment. But anyways, if they were anywhere near as busy as I am now, I really can't blame them for maybe not always having the time to set aside a day to teach me like basic plumbing or something like that. My dad's actually very into computers, in really quite an incredible way for someone who is now retiring, and it's nothing to do with his job either. He's dentistry and computers. I don't really think they have an awful lot to do with each other, but he is, he is very talented, and I have a lot of respect for that. Now, when it comes to going back to what I was saying earlier, though, when it comes to the fact that we maybe haven't had a huge amount of information passed on to us in the sort of, familial patriarchal lineage that you usually see in history, that has left a lot of men just being taught by women. If you're anything like me, virtually all your teachers in primary school were women. Every single one of mine was. There was not a single male. And then secondary, it was about half and half. Half and half is maybe not the worst thing, but for primary to actually have no men at all, I don't really think there's any surprise that now you've either got people that are really quite effeminate, and an increase as well in a lot of people being gay and effeminate, even if they are like technically straight or something like that. Or you've got a lot of people who are having basically a severe reaction to that, almost like an allergic reaction, and seriously seeking out masculinity and content around masculinity. And this is where a lot of channels right now are filling the niche for, if you want to be a man, do this. You have to read, everyone has to have read 48 Laws of Power, and everyone needs to, be a bit like David Goggins. So I don't personally feel as if that is a good a good thing to go to. I would definitely say that is actually closer to what you need to be doing, though. You maybe just don't need to be the Spartan that David Goggins is. I would certainly say, don't do drugs, learn how to work on your car, learn how to, how the plumbing and things like that in your house works. There's actually a great video by a channel called Speed with 3 E's by the guy that used to work at Donut Media that came out recently, and it's something like I think it's 42, 43 things that everyone should know, and it's like tying a knot, being able to sing a full song like as a party trick, what else, being like knowing, it was silly things like knowing how to dice an onion. An absolutely fantastic video. I think that kind of content is just living a normal life. Just living a normal life in like the 90s is what a lot of these people are trying to get back to. Now, personally, whilst I think that content is great, I think that the 90s is not where we want to go back to. I think that, going back to any point in history is a bad thing. You need to just be aware that going back to something means that you're just going to run into the same problems that have led us here. We need to be able to evolve, and whatever revolution is coming within the next couple of years across the West, it's not something that can go back. It has to see the problems that we have now and apply the solutions to them that are modern solutions, not go back to the 50s or go back to the 30s or something like that. Okay, so I've gone off on a little bit of a tangent, as I like to do in these videos. Sorry. So when it comes to Jimmy Talks, this YouTube channel who does make sort of good prepping material, it's got me thinking. So I've got quite a lot of Bitcoin. I don't really have any physical silver anymore. I should have got a little bit more. I did sell it before it like spiked, and that's kind of like the wrong time to like now want to just like FOMO back into it. Bitcoin's been going down as well, so I think that the best move for me is to buy the Bitcoin as it gets cheaper and cheaper. Not and then hold on to it, not get out of the cheap Bitcoin that's coming my way now and get into the expensive precious metals. It's fine. I think I mentioned this on another video. I just sold it a bit too early, but there you go. So with what's going to be happening potentially in the next couple of years, I do think that there is going to be some kind of big thing. That's the best way I can describe it. In the UK, we're unfortunately getting we are looking. It just seems like we're getting closer and closer to becoming a bankrupt country, which is a real worry. Not only because my other half has a business that is all to do with property, basically, and having a bunch of large properties with mortgages on them, which at the moment do very well, but if no one ends up holidaying, well then holy shit, what do you do with 8 massive properties? What you can hope for in that situation is hyperinflation, which then leads to something called Cantillon effects, which is where you're on a fixed mortgage and basically hyperinflation, where everyone's being paid £10,000 a day. Well, that's all right because my mortgage is £4,000 a month, so I can pay it off after a few days of work. Now that's obviously an extreme level of breakdown, because obviously at that point the world is so fucked that like people aren't going to be using money anyways, and that's like paying off all those houses would be very nice with basically a day's work, but I think the bigger picture would be worse. I love to fucking ramble in these videos. I think this is just what happens. Anyways, I think in the UK it looks as if we're going to be getting very close to being bankrupt if we don't have a general election soon, or at the very, very latest kick the Labour government out in 2029, which may even be too late. I think I've heard Rupert Lowe saying that may even be too late. then, you know, we either end up in like a South Africa kind of country, or we end up in a very ugly situation and make good on the promises of a couple of intellectuals who've been saying civil war. Jesus Christ, I mean, if that happens, just make sure that you're ready. And that's ultimately what I started this video thinking about, being ready. And I think that if you're watching this, you probably have some element in your mind of, I want to be ready. Now, definitely follow Jimmy Talks and like watch his content for that. I started the video with a bit of that in mind, and I've sort of gone through that. But I think the main thing that I wanted to touch on as well is the fact that the quarter life crisis that I touched on earlier, that I mentioned, having a quarter life crisis is, I basically worked at a car dealership for this is maybe 5 or 6 years ago now. Worked at a car dealership for a while, and this, you might find this a bit of a pathetic story. 2019, COVID happened. I worked there. I bought Bitcoin. I had over a Bitcoin at one point, and I had over 130 grand. Decided I was going to quit. Decided that my job now would be to get to be a crypto trader, and lost 130 grand basically. Just not a pretty sight. And I think I've like gone through this before, but the thing that the thing that I like think about now is, I've always thought of myself as being a father, and I've always thought of myself as, what's the life I want to have? Well, I want to have a farmhouse. I want to have a nice bit of land. I want to homeschool, all this sort of stuff, like quite self-sufficient, a little bit sort of like off the grid. Now that's where I'm back to now. That's where I've refocused onto now. But the only time in my life where I like really now look back on and kind of, like I said earlier, don't regret every single thing that happened in those couple of years, but certainly do regret some of the stupid decisions that I made. It's because I lost touch with that ultimate vision, this ultimate, why am I doing this? If I had stayed the course, then I would be doing the job that I am now. I would have a lot more Bitcoin than I do now, and I'd probably be a lot richer. And that's the thing. Like, and there's a couple of other things that like now I want to do again that I had the time to do back then, and now just things are more expensive, and it just seems a little bit. It just seems a bit rotten. But basically, I got that Bitcoin. I had it for 2 years. I spent about, like I say, about 2 years, maybe. Sorry, I'll start this all again. 2019, COVID happened. I had quite a lot of Bitcoin. I think it was in 2020 or 2021. Something like that I quit working there, decided I would go out and do it all myself, basically got out of that Bitcoin into other like shitcoins and altcoins, thinking like, oh, this is going to be the future now, and just lost it all. Then for the next year and a bit, 2 years in total, I would say, so this maybe took us into 2023, start of 2023, was when I decided I need to get back into work. But that interim period there was quite tough. That was, maybe this is something that some of you guys have had, you just sort of think to yourself, I should have fucking sold it rather than just taking screenshots. And coming out of that, going back into work, trying to do a few things myself, like once you get back into work, and you focus on that properly, I think that just, it's just funny that I had like such a good plan that I just was so focused on for so many years of, this is the man that I want to be, this is the family that I want to have, and this is what I want to do, this is how I want to raise kids. And the moment that I lost sight of that and I actually got really focused on money, is when the money kind of stopped coming. The money became really tough to get, and I lost so much of it. And now that I'm refocusing on that again, I actually find myself at work really enjoying work and doing very well at it. Making good money decisions. Like, it's funny that when you focus on something, that then becomes the difficult thing. And that when you just kind of focus on enjoying your life, then that, like, all the money comes kind of, I don't want to say easily, but I think it's maybe just the fact that you're not always trying to improve your financial situation by making oh, I'll flip that, or oh, I'll invest in that and it'll go up by. You're not always trying to do that, and it just seems. I think it's interesting that the less effort that you put into things when it comes to money, the more it kind of takes care of itself. Day traders do not, over time, perform better than people who just simply stick their money into something like gold or the stock market and just let it sit, or even their pension or something like that. Obviously, sticking it into a bank is different because then you don't hedge against inflation, but it's just, yeah. So this is very much a personal video. I do apologise if there are some things in this that not everybody can take advantage of in terms of direct advice, but I do hope it provides a little bit of maybe insight for you. But certainly if you've got a certain plan and you're in your early 20s right now, just focus on making that plan come to life. If you are a bit like me and you wanted like a certain lifestyle, just focus on making that lifestyle happen. Don't focus on, oh, this is what I'm going to be about now. Remember what you're always about. And yeah, just living normally is just a life of the 90s, really. If you want to be exceptional, it's going to be a life that is different to what you have now. It's going to be a life sort of set in the future. See you later.